It's good afternoon, and thank you for the organizers. A fantastic opportunity. Um, there is so much activity that is going on, so much support. The momentum is really fantastic. When I first got into the EV sector 10 years ago, the amount of indifference, the naysayers were so much, the challenges were so much, and today we are seeing great opportunities. Thank you very much for all the organizers, and thank you for all the dignitaries and the delegates who have been present in very large numbers. I want to briefly give an introduction to the Tamil Nadu EV Task Force. The Tamil Nadu government decided that electric vehicles are a great opportunity. They are a very important sector that we want to promote. And because this is a very important sector, and we don't want to rely on the traditional model of people approaching the government with proposals and supporting that. That is something that many governments are doing, and it has been very, very good. But we want to accelerate that, and therefore we formed a task force with multiple members. The focus is on building strong EV ecosystem in the state. And we are targeting a $40 billion by 2030 just from Tamil Nadu state, and $40 billion in revenues on vehicle manufacturing. And on top of that, we're looking at an additional $23 billion of component manufacturing that would be sold outside the state. So we're not double counting this. The 40 includes component manufacturing that happens in the state, but the 23 will be on top of that. So $63 billion is what we're targeting, and that goes way towards the $1 trillion economy that we want to build. So it's a very important sector. We need to grow not only vehicle manufacturing, we definitely need to grow cell manufacturing and charger manufacturing. These three are very important. And on top of that, critical component manufacturing. Tamil Nadu is already pretty good on much of the vehicle components, but there are new components when it comes to battery, the motor, the charger, the controllers, and telematics. We are focusing on all these areas and developing the complete ecosystem. We want to make sure that when you hear about Hyundai or VinFast or somebody or Tata's investing in vehicle manufacturing in the state, we think what is even more important than that is the equivalent of the Bosches, like we have Sona Comstar investing in the state. The next level parts are very, very, very critical for us. Otherwise, you have a very shiny shell that's very thin and it can collapse anytime. You got to have a very strong Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3 raw material recycling and service environment in the state. And charging is a very, very important part of that, and we keep talking about that. And we also want to go beyond and make sure much of the equipment that we use in both testing and process are also localized. Many times in most of the industries that have been very successful, you'll see we have German machines, Japanese machines, Taiwanese machines. Good, but not good enough. We definitely want to make sure that we are at a point, at least Tamil Nadu state and some other states in India are at a point where the youth are very, very aspirational. We need high-value jobs. They're demanding higher pay. And how do you create high-value jobs? By moving the bar, not just assembling, not just leveraging our low-cost environment in the country. We want to move towards high-value environment, which means we need to be able to design and develop our own equipment, and including test equipment, which means we have to increase a lot of R&D. There's a tremendous amount of R&D activity. Like TIDCO is working on university research parks on the models of IIT Madras Research Park across the state. They're initially talking about 5. The first one has been announced, the TN engine has been announced in Coimbatore already with the Tata support. And now we are working on Madurai. And Startup TN is already spending a huge amount of effort across the state in developing the Startup TN structure. So we have the industry sector, which is Guidance TN. We have the MSME sector, which is FAME TN, you see here. And then Startup TN. And we have Tamil Nadu Skill Development Corporation. We are doing a lot of work in creating 35 lakh skilled people, most of them engineers, that we need for this industry. We have started the work. We are thinking you're going to create the jobs and we're going to have people that will be ready to work in your companies for that. We're doing that. And we're working with TNIFMC to support all the investments in startups. TITCO, I already spoke about. SIPCOT is creating a lot of land banks that we need to create all the infrastructure. Today, in most states, when you go and ask for a 25-acre plot, it takes a lot of effort. We don't want. We are going to assume we are going to succeed and get the land ready, get the people ready. Same thing with CITCO and Anna University and IIT Madras. You saw Karthik earlier this morning. He's part of the team. So they're also part. So all the R&D, all the skilling and everything is being coordinated. So we're not playing a single violin. We're having a huge orchestra that's creating wonderful music. And that's what we are doing with the task force. We are working to bring in the TN power sector, especially the Green Climate organization that has been recently formed into this. In charging infra, people who are working on charging infra, you know the challenges that you're facing today in Tamil Nadu. We need their support. So they are going to be pulled into the task force. And of course, we are working on items like policy, cluster development. We're looking at 4 major clusters in the state. First, we worked on Coimbatore, and it's been progressing very well. We are working on Chennai. We are working on Hosur, and we hope to develop the whole Tuticorin region as a complete Shenzhen for India. Very focused on leveraging the 2 ports you have in the region, both the Tuticorin port and the Vizhinjam port, and develop that area where we don't have too much industries, land is available, power is available. The offshore wind energy potential in Tuticorin is extremely high, so we are leveraging that. I'm also the CEO of a Center for Advanced Automotive Research at IIT Madras that works on translational technologies. Most research organizations work on concept-level technologies. What we want to do is translational technologies that immediately industry can absorb. Otherwise, you have to figure out all the prototyping, all the manufacturing development, all the testing and everything. We are taking care of all of that. And that is also being supported by the governments and the institutes. Now, focusing on the topic on hand, ride-hailing and delivery. There is ride-hailing in 2-wheelers, there is ride-hailing in 3-wheelers, light commercial vehicles, and cars. We are not talking, my topic is not on the trucking industry. We have a lot of discussions on trucking industry. Now we are talking about this aspect of ride-hailing. Passenger per area on the road and parking space. Today, a lot of people use cars to drive around. And many times, the average passenger mobility in a car is 1.2 to 1.3, most of the time. If you have a driver, he doesn't count, right? He's moving you. He's part of the vehicle, essentially. So, but the average passenger movement by a 2-wheeler is 1.6 in India. It uses 1/4 of the road and parking. You look at the average passenger mobility in a bus, and you look at the amount of space that they use, is much, much, much smaller. So we want to make sure that we are moving people more in public transportation, more in bus, elevate the level of the bus, like what happens in Singapore and other countries where the buses are really, really good, and people don't hesitate to travel in a bus. People don't hesitate to travel in trains in most of these, in metros, in most of these countries, in US, in New York, in London, in Japan. So you have to create high quality so people don't worry about traveling in them. There are people who have egos. That's okay, but they are a small exception. The segment has very, very high usage on the roads. Most of the ride-hailing companies, the vehicles move on the road a lot. TCO benefit is a huge benefit for them. Running costs on electric vehicles is so low, the more kilometers they run, whether it's a 2-wheeler or a 3-wheeler or a truck or a bus or a light commercial vehicle, you definitely reduce on your movement cost with the electric vehicles. And with many, many creative ideas with fast charging, if you can create more fast charging within the cities and between the cities, now we are definitely looking at more electric vehicles constantly moving. The biggest challenge in ride-hailing industry is you need a very strong charging infrastructure. You need to reduce downtime. You cannot have a situation where they drive and then they run out of power and then they have to spend 6 hours charging. You can't do that. So the areas that we have been working on is, in the short run, make sure that you have a lot of public charging infrastructure. But in the long run, we're talking about ubiquitous charging. We're talking about charging on the road, if we can. If we can talk about having power points everywhere and have onboard chargers that can charge at 1C rate, or maybe even more. If you can do that, now you are able to just plug into any plug anywhere, or maybe even go wireless. There's a lot of technology that's being developed on wireless. Think about you're driving a vehicle, you're going and parking in a parking spot, and you don't even think about whether I have to charge. You don't find a plug, and then you have to authorize payment, nothing. You just have a monthly or an arrangement with a provider, a charge provider. Instead of an Airtel, let's call it a ChargeTel, right? So you park the vehicle and the charging point talk to each other. The backend agreement is with the ChargeTel. I'm just making up a name here. And it gets charged. It picks up a certain amount of charge. You decide in the vehicle whether you want to charge it beyond 80% or not, you want to pick up 10 minutes charge or not, at whatever rate. You set all the limitations. The vehicle and the parking spot talk to each other, decide to pick up a charge wherever you park. That is the future that we want to work towards quickly. We want the future come very fast. In the short term, put as much charging points as possible. So today, imagine if you have a cell phone, you move from one area to the other. If you have to keep dialing into every tower, you don't do that. Same thing can happen with electric vehicles. So we are working towards that. For that, we need onboard chargers. Onboard chargers today can be integrated with your motor control unit, which already has all the MOSFETs and everything. And we have done a lot of studies on that. There are some companies that have already launched these. You actually save money when you're integrating an onboard charger and a motor control unit, because there are so many common components that you are utilizing. Your motor control unit is not controlling the motor when you're charging. You're parked. And things like that. So there's a lot of work that we can do in these areas. And in the EV task force, we are working on ensuring that you don't have to invest heavily and you don't have hurdles for the infrastructure part of it. You invest in your charger and everything else should be available to you. This is what we are working towards. Similarly, we want to make sure that the point at which you're putting charging, you're not being charged for the land. You have cross-subsidy, either with a mall or an A to B or some other eatery or your shopping area or something like that. So anyway, they provide parking. Metro station will provide parking because they want you to come and use the metro station. Now, why would they charge for the spot on which you're putting a charging point, right? So we are trying to work out all this, okay? And we're also working on developing vehicles that are safer, that have lesser chance of having road accidents. You already have a very good amount of work being done in large vehicles, in cars, but India is a country that uses a lot of two-wheelers for deliveries and three-wheelers for deliveries. The amount of safety, the stability of these vehicles is much, much lower. If somebody comes and hits the vehicle on the side, most likely the vehicle is going to be on the floor and the person is going to be under a truck or a bus. It happens a lot. So we are trying to find a way to fix that. Come up with vehicles that will be a lot more stable, a lot more safer. So that's work is happening. And also more compact. Can I make a three-wheeler that is only as wide as a two-wheeler that can go into the smallest lanes and things like that and deliver stuff? Can we also develop vehicles such a way that the motor, the battery, and everything are so integrated into the structure so that the amount of usable space, the volume that you have for your cargo is maximized? So we are working on all these things. So any questions, please?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
It's a really an interesting presentation what you have done it, and it is good to see that I am from this state, and I'm proud to see when Mr. Sinha was talking about Gujarat and Tamil Nadu. By the way, I'm Vanchinathan. I am representing a company called Rosari Professional.
Nice
We are
to
going to
meet you.
be a cleaning and hygiene partner for this huge big project. Just a matter of as a citizen, which was a dream to actually understand while we are designing all these things, can government regulate few things like trucks internationally? If they have to drive on a slow track mode, they need to form and learn that lane only they need to follow. So that consumes a lot of time for the people when they are going in the public. When this EHNV is going to be a big hit in the market, they are going to consume a lot of energy for the vehicle which is going on the track. Is it that we are looking at a separate corridor for electric vehicle?
No, I think it's a very, very good point. It's a very large problem on the roads today, the corridor based approach. I think from an infrastructure point of view, if they're doing the corridor, is one question. I think it's a very good question that should go to the union government, which really takes up these efforts. But from a state government point of view, what we are trying to do is we're trying to make sure that we encourage the right kind of vehicles with the support. We want to encourage vehicles that carry more people, more cargo as a preference compared to vehicles that carry only one person or two people and things like that. That we are trying to do. Also, what we are trying to do is there are a lot of people who are doing a lot of efforts individually. For example, Relax is doing a lot of work, NHEV is doing a lot of work. But bringing everybody together and making sure that we as an organization that is working with the government is able to help you, that is very important. We want to make sure we are increasing the awareness that we are here to help create the industry, not just be the single window clearance. That is already being done. But we want to go beyond that. We want to also make sure if there is a policy that needs to be developed, if you want to have a B2B connect, if you're coming up with an idea, Startup EN has so many companies that come up with ideas and business. The question is, are they valid? Can we connect with their potential buyers and understand if there is an opportunity? Do they need their suppliers? For example, Electra EV has come to us and saying that we're not able to find suppliers, and we were able to solve that problem in a week for them. So that's what we want to do. Thank you, sir.